Hey. Oh, and your audio isn't on either. Oh shit, that's crazy. I didn't even
We're just
fix it.
fucking all around.
Ay, Dios
No,
mío.
solo digo que tu acento va a estar más marcado porque el acento peruano no es
No
tan
es tan. Sí, sí, sí.
notable.
Sí, siempre dicen como que los sudamericanos. Di que los. Bueno, eh, es una cuestión de región, pero en
Mm.
particular, yo no creo que los acentos del Sudamérica son tan diferentes, como que son tan... Hay algunos porque
No, sí son. O sea, el
sí son, pero
argentino,
sí, yo creo que
colombiano.
en particular los peruanos, yo no sé. Yo
No,
creo que el
it doesn't
acento
stand
peruano es
out.
más, sí, sí, es más
It's like
subtle.
the Midwestern equivalent, so I really
Sí,
wonder.
sí. Bueno, like if like the Midwest is like some traditional accents, like, but they
No,
don't.
it's just basic.
But like if you went like old school Ohioan, there's like some things that like are there, but like they don't talk like that anymore in Ohio.
Well, that's like country. That's like paisano.
Yeah, I
That's
guess.
just different.
No, I mean like Midwest, like Chicago, like old school Chicago accents, for instance, are like very like
Yeah,
how they like the Bears and like the whole thing.
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
don't.
you're right. You're right.
I'm sure that there's some Ohio equivalent of that, but now everybody just
Yeah.
talks like
I
they're
don't know.
they're in a hardcore band. So, ¿qué pasa, señores? ¿En qué estamos? ¿Cómo
Mm,
está todo?
¿qué lo que?
¿Qué lo que, señor? ¿Qué lo va? Aquí estoy con uno de mis amigos mejores, un artista y intelectual, um, uh, una persona muy talentosa y honesta y graciosa, none other than Stephanie Kiyabamba Kong, straight out of Peru.
Hello.
Um,
Hola.
Not
¿Qué
straight out
tal?
of Peru, but like straight,
Not straight out of.
but
Currently
like
located.
currently located, situada en Lima, Perú, ¿no?
Ujú.
¿Y cómo está todo para allá?
Bueno, estamos tranqui, chill. O sea, había unos huaicos, like, from the cyclone that came through, but no afectaron Lima tanto, o tal vez es parte de por donde yo vivo,
Okay.
no sentimos casi nada. Entonces, todo tranqui, todo normal, sí.
Uh-huh.
Pero sí me estoy muriendo de calor. Like, it's hot and humid, and I barely, I'm staying alive.
I remember. I think you told me when it was the winter over there. You were like, "It's not. It's cold and wet." Is what you said. Like I feel like Lima is just like I feel like it's humid in general.
Okay, la cosa es que Lima is in the desert, right?
See.
But it's on the coast, and there's this weather phenomenon called garua, which is like a permanent cloud that sits over the area, the city. It's like I think it has to do with El Nino, like it's just a weather phenomenon.
Mm.
But it just makes it so that everything is covered by clouds. Like it's humid, but it doesn't rain. Or the sky will be like gray all of winter, so you won't see like blue skies, you won't see the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the summer, there's like really cloudy days.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel the heat, like you can feel your skin like quemándose, but you don't see the sun. So it's a little odd.
Debe ser que la meteorología es yo no sé cómo decir, como que una área de estudiar, de estudio, como que like, I don't even remember how to say it in English, like, like
What they
a,
study
yeah, like an
in
area of
meteorology?
study that's like
Uh-huh.
I just think it's an interesting thing to study. I'd be really interested in taking like meteorology courses if I was back in school.
Ah,
Do you know what I mean?
good for you.
Good for me. Before we get into sort of questions and stuff, do you want to just sort of talk about yourself and your work?
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll just do it in English.
Yeah,
My name is
yeah,
Stephanie.
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure
Hi.
most people here are not speaking Spanish, but
We can
Some of them
practice
are. Some of them are. Yeah.
later down the
Yeah.
line,
Yeah. 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 We'll
and
switch. We'll switch.
it will be fun. But
See.
hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm an artist. I graduated with a BFA, which is Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. That's not really the important part. Basically, I work in like photography, some writing, some video about things like identity. I'm Peruvian American. So the idea of like being neither here nor there. I've had a really awesome opportunity to travel and live in Lima, Peru, where I'm right now, for 9 months. So I'm kind of on the end of that experience, but it's been really, really awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of just like a working artist trying to make it work.
Yeah. Stephanie is recently graduated as well, uh, and is already making waves. Already in her influencer bag. You know what I mean? People on her Instagram pulling up to her gallery showings and whatnot. So make sure you stay in tune. I'm introducing her to y'all in my little online space, but in a few years she'll be more famous than I, far more
Nah,
famous than I.
nah,
She's just got a famous vibe. I mean, look at her. Look, she's got this
no,
just famous essence, this famous style.
no, no, no. I think
Entonces,
you'll persevere as the famous friend.
we'll see. We'll see.
We'll
Fame,
see.
fame is fleeting. No. We have some sort of questions and topic suggestions from our
Yeah.
audience that have uh, have the capacity to structure and guide our conversation, which I am truly grateful for. And I thank you all for your submissions. And we'll also talk to the chat and whatnot. We'll be bouncing back and forth between the community post comments in the chat. So, yeah, just feel free to hang out and chill. And I also should take this opportunity to mention a couple things about the channel before we proceed as well. We got a video coming out Sunday. Deny is finishing up the edit for the first draft. We're going to be talking about community. We're going to talk about it's going to be an interesting take. Well, let me not call it interesting. I'll leave that to you. But it's going to be my sort of take on the nuance of what it really means to be in community and observing whether or not our fixation upon an idea of collectivism versus individualism is truly is truly adequate for dealing with the issues of loneliness that some of us are sort of looking at them for. And I also have a ridiculous cowlick, so I'm just gonna not ever turn my head to this side. I'm gonna be like that one like classic femininity TikToker that just like does this all of her videos like doing things for her children, and her face is just like this the whole time. It's like cuts of all like her doing something for an hour, and she just will refuse to show any other side of her face, and she's
Oh,
just
I have
like,
no idea what you're talking about.
you gotta see it one day. You gotta see it. Entonces, we have a few questions and comments from the community post. Now, Michael Jackson Forever, I just have to shout out. Staying up until like 3 a.m. right now. It's 2:37. She commented. They
Oh
commented
wow.
a few minutes ago. Out in Germany, I believe. So, Dankeschön. Um,
Dankeschön.
and
We love a night owl.
we do stand a night owl. I would love to be on my night owl shit soon, but
Could you say guten Nacht, right?
uh,
Good night.
something like that. I know like Guten Morgen, but like I don't know much else. I really don't know shit in German. It's another thing I would love to study. Thank you for the love in the chat too, Chilled Cheetah. I see you. Ariana Grande back in 2014. Is that what you're comparing Stephanie to? Is that Stephanie's era right now?
No.
You're early. Okay, so first comment I'm seeing is from Card Creations, who just says how you have so few memories compared to how long you've lived, and how children's lives are so well documented now compared to even people born 15 years ago. So I'm not 1,000% sure what is being described as far as having few memories compared to how long you've lived. I think I know what that's getting at, but I think I experienced that a little bit differently, because for me personally, I was talking to a friend the other day, and this kind of goes into a conversation about the self that folks have been kind of curious about because I mentioned it in my dissociation video. But I don't feel super like I don't feel my memories as much as I used to. I
Hmm.
think especially before the pandemic, but up till when I was like 22, 23 even, I definitely felt my memories in this very like linear and like emotional way where I still kind of felt like the 14-year-old, the 12-year-old, the 17-year-old versions of me. And if I remembered, a thing that happened when I was in high school, a thing that happened when I was, in junior high and I had a crush on this girl, or I had like this song that I made, like I could like I had this strong feeling about it. Not even just like in a term of an emotion or an emotional sensation, but just like the way that I would recall it, I would feel very like in it, like, oh yeah, yeah, I remember this very well. And when I remember those things now, I haven't lost the memories, but I don't like it feels like almost it was a different person now. Like when I think
Hmm.
about who I was when I was 13, I remember that time period. There's no strong feeling that comes over me. It's more whatever details I can remember. I don't feel like the embarrassment. Um, I can kind of feel like some of the happiness and some of the sadness, but like nothing terribly strong. Just like, yeah, I remember well, when I was 12, I made this one song and I had this, I used to put these filters over my pictures and it would be like this particular color. And I used to put the saturation up and the contrast up, and because I had this thing with like comic book art style, and like I can remember things like that, but it just almost doesn't even resonate as like something like even day to day where I think about what I did yesterday and it's just like the way that memories feel to me are just not as personal or as connective to me anymore. They just kind of feel like things, and I don't feel badly about that. I kind of like that, but I think maybe some people are feeling that in a way, especially with the way that time feels so disjointed now, with how
Hmm.
our attention spans are just so all over the place, and with of course COVID, and I think there's a point to which a lot of people are experiencing this kind of dissonance now, and maybe these dissociative feelings about their memories, um, or just not making as many memories in general because of the lack of feeling present. So maybe it has something to do with that, and I don't know if you feel something to that nature in your own life.
I mean, I think like I'm 23 now, and I feel like I felt things a lot more seriously, even if they were small, um, just a couple years ago. And maybe, like you said, it has to do with COVID and the pandemic and our sort of like reconceptualization of time. But I
Yeah,
also think part of it is I saw this graphic go around once that was like you don't your memories or your kind of like your traumas don't get smaller, you just grow around them. So like
yeah,
there starts to build a distance between who you are and then who you were when you felt something or when um you had a really strong emotion. Like I remember a time when I felt like I just had um like I don't know. It was kind of like a struggling sort of time, and like not not very many good things are happening. And when I think about it now,
mm,
um, with several years distance as opposed to like couple months distance, I feel less kind of like rage or like less very like serious,
mm.
strong negative emotions. I mean, they're still there, but I think the distance in terms of time and then also like being able to process something over and over also helps
Yeah,
kind of like mellow that feeling down or like that like mediate that distance, if that makes sense.
yeah. I wonder if there is a I wonder if there's something to the idea that the memory maybe is more vivid because of not what had happened at that time, but of what the memory represents to you in the present, like, or what it is to you in the moment, right?
Yeah, I also think that because like when you recall a memory, like you're rewriting it
Yeah,
like again, so
yeah,
you can remember the way that you remembered it before, but you're never gonna like remember the original moment. the first way you did.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I think there's something definitely beautiful and romantic for sure about the idea of like holding on to memories and wanting to
Mm,
capture memories, wanting to capture moments in time. Obviously, there's a value to that in terms of historicity, right? Too of having, if not photographs and just like things like old things. But I think also, I don't think I'm a very romantic person. Um,
uh,
I
I am.
well, yeah, Stephanie is. Um, I'm pretty aromantic in terms of just like my outlook on life. I just kind of I think sometimes I guess generally I don't like to be very attached to things. I just kind of like to let things be. And so for me, I just whenever something's fascinating, if there's anything romantic to like what I feel, it's just the idea of like what the new possibility is rather than sort of what the thing was or what the thing represents in a sense
Hmm.
of a narrative like that I care about, like one of the reasons memories are so valuable to us is because they create a narrative of our lives, right?
Yeah.
That narrative helps us keep track of how we consider ourselves, how we think of ourselves and how we act in the world, because I was this when I was this age, and this is how I developed over time, and this is why I'm like this, and this is why this is this, and why it's important that I do this. And to me, I don't care too much for that. I care about narratives in terms of the practical side of those things, of course, and keeping track of those things um, to some degree, of, even just naturally. But I also am not terribly attached to it. I'm always interested in like a rethinking process of being like, oh well, this is maybe not that important, or maybe this means something else. And so, yeah, I just think being a little bit open about these things can be a bit of a relief too, because sometimes we over romanticize our memories and our
Mhm.
experiences and our senses of self. And when we do that, we we uh, we tend to overlook the whole living part, right? Um,
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I feel like that on a personal level is like the the healthier approach as someone who holds on to or tries to hold on to the original thing too much. Um, yeah.
yeah, holding on is a choice that can be justified and understood, but ultimately has its flaws, right? Has its difficulties.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so that was a really thoughtful question.
Very deep question.
Very deep to
Yeah.
start.
So yeah, to get us started.
Next comment I see is aside from Michael Jackson Forever's. The one I see is my new movie saying, "Nothing serious, just do you and have fun with your friends." So, we're having fun. Hey, thank you, my new movies, for the comment. Ben Bowers comments, "How to be under capitalism but also be vibing," with a sort of depressed emoji. So
Uh,
that's an interesting question with a lot of potential places to go. So why don't you kick us off? What comes to mind immediately?
sure. I mean, being under capitalism and vibing is no easy task. I mean, I don't think I have it figured out. Um, I'll say like from the artist perspective, like you're constantly working both within and then against this sort of like capitalist structure because like I don't really want to participate in that fully. Like my goal is not to go out and make a lot of money, but it's something that you need to survive, unfortunately. So
Right.
I see it as like you have to put your, your physical well-being, being able to eat, being able to shelter yourself, being able to pay your bills, but also like very seriously balance that with your emotional well-being. So,
Yeah.
maybe I'm not, saving all the time. Maybe I'm not pursuing, like, I don't think it's important for me at least to pursue a very high earning job. And I mean, I do have the privilege to, not pursue that. I don't have anybody to take care of. Like, I don't have debt. Um, but that's also like a conscious choice I feel like I'm deciding to step away from that I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, especially in our generation that are like, or our age that are, entering the workforce, like have already entered the workforce. have these goals of like you want a high salary, high paying salary job.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a compromise that I'm willing to make at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
It's
the
also, sorry, wait, I want to add one more thing.
yeah.
I think all that to say, like the salary is not a measure of your worth because I mean, it's not even a measure of the work that you do, um, or you would do. So that's sort of like why I choose to kind of step away from that because I don't see it as like, I don't, yeah, I don't see it as establishing my worth as a artist and a worker.
Yeah. Yeah, as the great Mike Shinoda once says, it's all about it's not about the salary, it's all about reality. It's a quote from the 2005, the 2005 record "Remember the Name" by Fort Minor, classic. So for me, um, I think vibing. I wouldn't call vibing. I wouldn't go as far as to say like calling vibing. I wouldn't go as far as to say that vibing is anti-capitalist as an action in and of itself. I wouldn't go as far as to say that. I've heard that sort of point made, and the point of like like self-care being an act of rebellion, that kind of thing, right? Um, I wouldn't go as far as to say that personally, because I like to structure theoretically the political as its own realm within actions do have like this sort of tangible nature of like a interaction. Like I like to think of the political as its own sort of thing. And I don't really like to think of everything as like I think everything can be political, but not per se is political. Um, but I bring this up to say that one of the best ways to resist capitalism's hold on you is to be present and to be happy, because first from a you know tangible standpoint, and again I'm not saying that this is like an act, I'm not saying like just be happy, man, like that's how we win, like that's not really my thing, per se. But for example, tangibly, if you're present and you're happy, you don't feel the senses of need and desire and the senses of anxiety and of lack that capitalism really, like capitalists really prey off of, that capitalism really asserts into human beings. I mean, classically, capitalism creates false needs and false wants. This is one of the things that it's said to do theoretically. It makes us feel like you have all these needs and these wants that in reality don't have anything to do with like something about the core human experience, and are not even that important when it comes to our own perspectives on our own lives. So when you're happy and you're in the moment and you're just vibing, that allows you to be calmer and happier, so you're not as easy to take advantage of, and you're not as hard done by everything, because it doesn't matter if you have like you're not so worried about having $100,000 a minute or not having the next thing, or the false sense of also constantly trying to reach a goal that you
Right.
equivocate with, that you equivalate with, equivalate that you
Equivocate.
equate. I was gonna trying to say equivocate, maybe right too.
I think it's equate.
Equate with happiness. We do this thing all the time where it's like, if I could just get this and this, right?
Right. But capital, like you said, like it manufactures those goals, those like things that you need. And the goalpost is always moving because that's the point too. So like it just really creates this like it invents an anxiety that now we all have.
Yeah, it's necessitatively cyclical. Without the cycle, capitalism doesn't exist. It's one of the core flaws of its sort of design, because it's, even early thinkers of capitalism, Adam Smith was a person who would say, but like then when you make the capital, you reinvest it, right? Like obviously, right?
Mm.
And then when it turned out that capitalism started happening, that didn't really happen. Like that's not what happened. It just kept going, and even in points in which it would seem completely counterproductive to, for instance, the health of a company, the health of a business, the health of an economy, to do certain things, like to continue in a certain cycle, the capitalist is conditioned to continue the cycle, because that is part of his essence as a capitalist. If he is not continuously taking surplus value and reinvesting it into things to get more surplus value, then he's no longer acting fully as in his station as a capitalist. And likewise, if the laborer is not conditionally having like selling their labor, and not conditionally also selling all of the different things that go into that labor, then the laborer is not fully fulfilling that station. So I think there's some interesting theoretical elements there, but to sort of hone it in, what I think is a lot of times we equate, we do this thing where we get into like philosophy or big ideas, and we get really into them as like these prescriptions of like, this is the problem with the world, and this is what's breaking, like this is not negotiable, and this is the thing, and we get really wrapped in that, and in actuality we're just kind of depressed. Like we think it's like everybody goes through that phase when they're 16, 17, they get really into existentialism, like, oh shit, why are we here, what's the point of anything?
What's the
And we think it's because we think our brain is programmed to just adapt to whatever rationalization makes sense to continue its processes. So we think, oh, well, that's logical. We just reached the logical point where we realize that nothing matters and everything is dumb, or everything is pointless, and the world is broken and everything sucks. And in actuality, we're just depressed. Like what's really happening is because like we have a shit relationship with our family, and we have shit going on at school, and we're being treated a whole bunch of bad different ways, and a whole bunch of our needs and desires aren't being met as human beings. And whatever the case might be, we turn to a rationalization, to philosophy, to sort of put a code of logic over what is actually just a faulty engine. And if you look under the hood, to use a car metaphor for some reason, if you look under the hood and check out what's going on, you'll just see like, oh shit, like I should probably have, like maybe I should wake up earlier. Like maybe I should get
yeah.
more sleep. Maybe I should drink more water. Maybe I should exercise regularly. I love this continuous trend on TikTok and Twitter of people being like, I have horrible news to report. I started waking up early and going to yoga, and now I can confirm this actually does make you feel better. And everybody's
Yeah,
like,
I can
fuck. Like,
confirm drinking water, like I don't know, it helps.
it helps. Like,
It helps. Do you remember I don't know if I was telling you once. So I tried to I tried antidepressants once and it wasn't for me, but my mom was like very against medication for that sort of thing. And so she was like, "Oh, you should take probiotics because that will help regulate everything." And I was like, "No, no, no, that's ridiculous." Um, turns out it does help.
it turns out that things do things,
It turns out she
and
was right.
they have like certain effects that sometimes are good and sometimes bad. And so if you do more things that will have good effects on your health, you will be happier. And then one day you're just like, oh, maybe life doesn't have meaning. Like the whole point is like even if you believe that, or even if you recognize that to be even more, they sort of like irreligious about it. Like, so what? You don't have to be miserable. Like nothing. The whole thing of like Buddhism for me is like, it's not belief. It's anti-belief, anti-faith, anti-religious almost. It's literally like the truth is right there, and the truth is that everything is create, like all these truths that we have are socially created and socially assigned by man, and all this shit comes down to shit we just do not fucking have the capacity to understand, let alone the stuff that we could have the capacity to understand and simply don't. um and so you should just like vibe, like you should just like be a good person and get yourself right, and that stuff will sort of have to figure, like whatever is in control of that stuff will be in control of that stuff. The same thing goes with anything. Like you can be the most radical leftist ever. It doesn't mean you should be miserable. There's no correlation there. Like it's emotion. So, you know, my whole thing is, yeah, if you're under, whether you're under capitalism or if one day capitalism is destroyed, like you're not going to be happy once like capitalism is destroyed just because it's destroyed.
Hmm.
There's just going to be a whole other set of things through which, if you are not getting your needs met and your desires met and you're not living healthily, you're still going to be miserable and unhealthy. The personal is quite different from the political project, even though the personal has a deep tie, obviously, and like what we experience has so much insight into the political project, and vice versa. Ultimately, like you can wake up early and you can sleep, or you can figure out, if it's not waking up early, if it's something where you have a, you know, conditions in your life are not suited to that, there's something you can do to make things a little bit better for yourself, which you can't say the same, you know, on an individual basis about, you know, capitalism, about wage labor. Like you can't make your job pay you fairly.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to stay like in, and it's not like, it's like I don't take it personally almost. It's like I'm just, you know, there's no reason I should be unhappy.
I
Like,
mean, there are reasons to be unhappy. Like
well,
I
there are
don't
reasons to be
fault.
unhappy, but there's no reason that I should like um avoid like cultivating what I can for myself in the face of that. Like conditions will make things difficult,
Mhm.
but as far as my individual experience, I could still find a way to make myself smile at some point, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to
Hey,
get
Jess.
to that mindset is very important, and like doing all you can to stay in it because like I don't know, I feel a lot of times there are the personal conditions where it's very difficult, like very, very difficult to even make ends meet. And then that directly contributes to your sense of like helplessness,
Yeah.
depression. Um, and so, like you said, doing all you can for yourself because there, I mean, there's no blame to be put on the individual that's not able to make capitalism work for them, you know?
Yeah, you know, it's like it's a very close relationship between like putting food on the table, right? Like if you have food on the table and you have your resources that you need to live as a human being healthily, um, then you can figure this other stuff out. If you're in a situation where those conditions are not even being met, then you have, obviously you're in survival mode as a human being, and that's a very different state of being. There's a social realm and a political realm, a conditional realm, not conditional, but like a realm to which your material conditions affect your mood and everything. But it's not a one-to-one causation correlation. It's not like, I was talking about this on another stream. Um, if you go to a person in the street and you push them and you shove them and then they punch you in the face, you can describe that as like you fucked around, you found out, right? Like you did something, and as a result, the person responded in that way. Like that was the cause and that was the effect. But when we analyze that, obviously that's not the only thing that could have happened. Like bazillion different things could have happened. You increase the odds of certain things happening, but ultimately the effect is not necessitated by the cause. It wasn't like you left me with no choice. Like it was just that was the rational move that person chose, right? And that's what I like to think of it as when it comes to the societal and economic effect on your health.
Mm,
I actually and like my point is in that sense is just because things are shit doesn't mean there's no hope, like not even like hope, but like doesn't like there's no choice other than misery. Like there's you can always find a way to choose something that's better for yourself. Like you will always have some choice. What sometimes all the choices are way shittier than they're supposed to be,
mm,
but you'll always have a choice of like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do. And I think it's important to keep that in mind because it's not, you know, I don't think you can just choose to be happy or choose to be healthy, but I think you can make choices in every moment of your life to just try, right? Like to just try to be in a better place, and you kind of have to do that. If you just give up and say, well, it's fucked, so it's fucked,
mm.
it's I can't judge you for that, but there's all types of stuff that you could be missing out on. And um there was something else that I was going to say that I was um shoot, it's just all over
Can
the
I say
place.
something?
Yeah.
It's giving everything everywhere all at once.
I haven't watched it. I haven't watched it.
What?
I haven't watched it. No, 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 no.
Bye.
Everybody's always telling me not to watch it.
Bye.
Color Mine was yelling at me. I'll watch it at some point. I don't know. Like, I just never wanted to watch it. Like, everybody was always talking about it, and I was just like, cool. And like, I completely accepted it as something for everybody else to experience, and not me. Like, okay, I'm over here. I'll be over here. You know, and I'm not even trying to be like hipster about it. I just am like, that's just how I am. I don't know. I'm just always like, okay, cool,
Okay.
have fun, you know.
Right.
Um,
It's
but
okay.
like, yeah, maybe I'll watch it. Um, so we have some interesting chat responses. I guess I'm gonna sort of dash whatever I forgot to think about. Um, SB says capitalism can in many ways normalize survival mode for many people and the symptoms of surviving, as does therapy within capitalism. Yeah, I think for most people, survival mode is at least most of your life. You know, when we think about the entirety of the world, you know, we have just bajillions of people that have some experience with poverty, that have some experience with lacking necessary resources, that have some experience with crisis. Um, you see me, Julian. You see me. We see each other. So survival is like necessitated when you are in a state of crisis. Um, and I don't need to tell anybody that they should avoid crisis. Although I do think there's a sense of when the brain is used to crisis, it often flocks toward crisis because that's what it knows. It's a fucked up sense of safety, of comfort in the discomfort, of comfort in the not even discomfort, comfort in like crisis, right? And so, you know, when we talk about like hurt people, or like people that like when we talk about this idea of people who self-sabotage or who seek problems, don't point yourself. People who seek problems, like that's kind of what we're talking about. Is like it's not their fault, but their brain is really conditioned in this way where they're making these choices on behalf of like, I'm comfortable within crisis. This is I've experienced all of this trauma. When I see the trauma around me, like we just naturally flock to it. Like when I eat 2 cookies, Stephanie, you know, like as a small scale metaphor, like I'll eat 2 cookies and then all of a sudden I'll eat 4 cookies and then all of a sudden I'm reading Twitter and then all of a sudden I'm about to write a really angry thread that might get me yelled at, and all of a sudden I'm like not moving, all of a sudden my neck hurts, like everything spirals, right? because your brain is like, oh, this is the thing, like this is it. Ah, yes, like this is the it. And until you kind of train your brain to be like, no, like no, this is not it. We are not comfortable doing this. Actually, we are comfortable doing this other thing. We are comfortable just drinking water. um like you're gonna have these difficulties. So it's I don't like to be an individual responsibility person, because it's not a judgment. It's just, I do think if we observe how our brains operate, we often see that we do these things over and over again because we have a sense of comfort in the horrible, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I forget what research exactly it is, but showing that like your neural pathways, once they've decided one thing is like the comfortable common thing, they keep going, you know. So
Yeah.
it's it's not a blame thing, but it's like you do also have the agency, or you should feel empowered to have the agency to say no to your neurons.
Yeah, we have only agency over ourselves, and even that to some degree. Like the only agency we have is like whatever the brain, like is the agency that we have over our brain. um Neuroplasticity is a way that people will describe it too, of like the way that you train your brain to do things. It's real. It's unfortunately quite real, and like I think that's what people are referring to. And it's like, yeah, like I woke up at 6. I'm starting to wake up at 6 a.m. and work out regularly, and all of a sudden I'm way happier. Like when you make those choices, it can feel impossible. It can feel like it's just not gonna happen. It's you don't understand. Like you see this a lot online, and I think a lot of people have valid points, but I've been in the position of being like, you don't understand, like this is not gonna work for me. Like I'm just not gonna be able to do this. I'm just not. I am built like this. I'm really skinny. I have ADHD. I have a lot of anxiety issues. I have all these problems. There's no way that I'm going to be able to do this. There's no way that I'm gonna have any to be able to play sports, like to be able to work out regularly. There's no way that I'm going to be able to read this gigantic book. It's just not going to happen. And then one day I'm just like, no, I'm going to do it. And then you do it. You know, you find a way. If you're not in crisis, you find a way. So yeah, avoid crisis and find a way. That's my advice.
Avoid crisis, but also you can solve crisis when you're in crisis. It's not the end of,
Things end.
you know,
Everything
it's not
ends.
over.
Yeah.
It's not over though. That's a big realization, I feel. For
Ex-
me at least. I was like, when
yeah.
I'm in crisis, it's not the end of the world,
No, it's not the end of the world.
even though it feels like it.
Yeah, the only thing that we know that is certain is that everything starts and ends, right? Like anything that starts ends. There, and so like if you're going through a shitty time, it's gonna end. Um, so the whole thing is just like, what are you gonna do in the meantime? And then when the end comes, whenever it comes, you figure out, okay, like it's now I'm gonna do this, and that's how it goes. Like if it was as simple as saying like you have all the control, or as simple as saying like everything's completely out of your hands, like fucking life would be so much easier if it had like. But I find that sometimes the cliches are the most potent things. Like hurt people. It's fucking corny, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sleep 8 hours a night. You know what I mean? Like these things, they sound so redundant and corny, but then you think about them and you're like, that shit is true. Um, SB left a comment on the community post. Thank you for everybody who's come in, who's left. Creative Inc. I see that you're leaving. Have a great one.
Good luck.
Um, Good luck. SB commented about an hour ago. How are we supposed to build community when everyone is traumatized? How does collective healing happen when the trend is cancellation? How can we truly heal and be healthy together when everyone and everything is labeled as toxic and the only remedy is everyone putting up better boundaries? Where and how can we practice better intimacy and understanding and empathy if not with each other? And who is supposed to guide us through this depth of work if not each other? So that was a sort of a poetic series of questions,
Yeah.
which I'll sort of narrow down to the idea of, don't we need each other? Like, shouldn't we stop like rejecting each other and cutting each other off? And shouldn't we like start coming together? So your thoughts on this, Stephanie? I know this is something that you think about a lot.
It is something I think about a lot. And would you mind rereading maybe at least the first part
Sure,
so I can?
sure.
Okay.
How are we supposed to build community when everyone is traumatized? Well, how does collective healing happen when the trend is cancellation? How can we truly heal and be healthy together when everyone and everything is labeled as toxic and the only remedy is everyone putting up better boundaries? Where and how can we practice better intimacy and understanding and empathy if not with each other? And who is supposed to guide us through this depth of work if not each other?
Hmm. Somebody commented damn SB and I feel the same way. But um no, Yali, you're right. I think a lot about community. I think a lot about collective healing, specifically tied to like musicking and community. So how do embodied actions like not just like dancing or talking, but also teaching and learning. So like the give and receive of learning. I think those are big community builders. And I mean, the biggest thing for
Yeah.
me is leading with empathy and then sincere empathy. And then also not tying, I guess, there was a part in there about like cancellation being a trend, like not tying that to solutions for collective healing. I like separating out what is going to serve healing and then what is not serving healing or an actively detriment to that. And so I feel like um I don't know, things like overactive cancellation discourse, like to me, that doesn't serve healing. And it also doesn't apply a lot in like real life situations if we're talking about like the political crisis here in Peru recently, like that is it's a factor online, but it doesn't really get to the core of the issues. And um yeah, I mean, I'm rambling a bit, but I think when you lead with sincerity and then clarity on like where the fissures are, I think that I don't know, that seems like it makes more sense to me. I Lisa said we just got to listen to each other and like that's part of the back and forth, the discourse, right?
Yeah.
Like the empathetic learning and listening and I don't know, I like the not to, narrow it all down to like the internet isn't discourse, but for me, a lot of the time, like it's not, you know.
Yeah, I love Elise's comment. I'm pinning it because
Yeah.
I really love the conceptualizing of like we have to be slow and gentle with others. Like I just love that. I just think that
No, we do.
that's super me. I I think so. One of the things that spoiler we're gonna sort of be talking about in this upcoming video, and sort of a conclusion I make is that we can only be like in community and collectivize um, effectively, you know, when we release the tendency to fetishize the community and the collective. We have a tendency to assign it this like superhuman like um this like benevolent perfectionist quality to the community. Like if only we were just in community, if only we all just worked together, we could solve everything. And like this idea of like your phone case. This I like this idea of I hear this idea of like like we need community, we need each other. Individualism is rotten. We need collectivism, and these things to a degree are true. But I think what we do is we act like collectivism is like the answer, and that community is like the end game. Like if we can just work together, everything will work out. And the whole thing about community is that like that's not true.
Yeah.
When you're in community with people, things are not all going to work out. There's going to be constant tension, constant conflict, constant problems, constantly people leaving, coming, going, having individual issues. That's as much a part of a community as anything. Um, Again, like the only thing that is certain is ending, right? The community will fall apart at some point. So if we continue to think of community as like this end game, sort of perfection, like this sort of brilliant thing, like we will ultimately never get the kind of community that we want, because when we start experiencing community and start trying it, we're just going to fall away from it, because when we experience it for what it actually is, we won't know what to do with it, because it's going to be too
Mm.
hard. It's too hard to work with other people. When you, and I think sometimes, like it's comparable to anxiety, right? When you're anxious, you're constantly thinking of like this perfect situation that you want to happen, and then when you go out and try to make it happen, it feels like everything falls apart and everything sucks. And in reality, it's just that you keep picturing this perfect version of events that you want to take place, and when it doesn't, you just retreat. When in
Mm.
reality, that's not how this works. You go and you try, and then things suck, and there's a lot of failure, and there's a lot of problems. But over time, the more work you put into it, the more effective it becomes, and the more things get done. And
Yeah, I
that's,
mean,
yeah,
community is discourse, and that's why I say like leading with empathy is the biggest thing for me, because there are going to be those clashes. There are going to be the like, this is what I think an outcome is, and this is what the other person or other parts of the community think something is going to be. And then when you reach those like not disagreements always, but those like compromises that you might have to make, it's not that doesn't mean you're not in community. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
the discourse is necessary. And I mean, a little bit aside from that, like I also think there's something to be said for like defining a community, because I think
yeah,
for me, a lot of realization has been like not every single person I meet is who I want to be in community with. That's also not to say like I believe in cancellation because I don't um all the time. But I think like really defining community by your shared values, morals, like goals, you know, it starts to take the idea of community from this overhead, like very amorphous, abstract cloud to like concrete people and groups and
right.
organizations. So I don't know,
Yeah.
I stepped a little outside there, but
No, I think what you're getting at makes a lot of sense, especially when you talk about defining community, because I think that's the big thing for me is when I think of community, it's a group of people coming together for some purpose or some connecting practice, some connecting experience. You have a community of place, you have a community of action. And I think one of the biggest problems is that we don't define what our communities are. We just
mm.
say this is the community. This is what like the big thing of leftism now is like, what about the left? Why doesn't the left work together? It's like, who the fuck is the left? Like,
Right, who are they? There's like all these different beliefs. Like, of course, they're not gonna reach one happy conclusion because they don't have
they
one.
don't have the same goals. Like, if I am, one person is a Hillary Clinton like center left American, and another person is like an anarcho communist. Like, where do you think they're going to align? That center leftist has more in common with a center right person.
Right.
But like the spectrum is useful. Like the political spectrum is useful for some cases, but oftentimes we're using these big abstractions to describe what the community is, and we say things like, "I want to be in community with you," and it's like, but for what? Like, my thing is, when we talk about community, we have the best way to do community is to be specific and be clear about what it is we're doing. So if I'm in community with you, you got to describe what that means. Like, I have to describe that means like, oh, we're in community of doing a climate change protest,
Hmm.
whatever. We're in community of making music together. Like this is what we do, and so everybody who's in the community can clearly define whether or not they belong there based on whether or not they're making music. And if they don't want to
Right.
make music with us anymore, then they can leave. And there's no tension over like why the fuck did you leave, because it's like you didn't want to do it, right? And then the whole processes of the arguments that we go through are a lot easier to sort through, possible to sort through,
That's the whole
because
thing, possible. Like it
like
allows for the dialogue to happen.
yeah
If you're in such a big like generic sort of group, the dialogue does not work.
exactly. And that was one of the biggest, that's one of the biggest things we're experiencing right now is a I like you use the word fissure, like we're just seeing this continuous cracking that's happening
Mm.
because people are realizing like, oh, like this community is not working for me, or this community doesn't make sense, or this community doesn't work. And so then everybody's just sort of running around looking for community, especially online. And that's just a part of life, right? Like that's part of the historical cycle that we're going through right now. And at some point, there will be new communities forged that will be grounded, and then they will break apart, and then people will be panicked again. And this is the process of human existence. What I will say is that, like, if we want to do it, if you want to do collectivism, if you want to do a collective action, define the action, like, and sometimes like one of the biggest points of the video that we're going to be talking about, or that we come to at the beginning, is sort of like the communities are here, like
Mm.
they're in front of you. You just like sometimes you just don't want to be a part of it, and like that's okay. Like sometimes it's not okay because sometimes you're just being way too fucking picky, and you just need to go to your goddamn drama club. Like just join your just join your local tennis club. It will be fine. You don't have to be completely in love with every single person in there. And oftentimes you learn way more from the people that you don't like all that much, or that you're not in love with. And
Mhm.
some days you'll just be like besties with somebody and then never be besties with them again, and that's life. Like it's way better if you just go and do things. So there has to be a thing doing at the core of collective of the collective of community. And when that is found, and that is agreed upon and believed in a way that actually matters to the people that are part of the community, then all these things of like resolving traumas and resolving internal debates and healing through each other will come naturally. Because if the goal matters, then people will figure out how to make it work. Right now everybody's just fucking confused. Nobody knows exactly what the goals are. And so this is
Mm.
a period where I think societally we're kind of we're conversating and we're thinking about it. And yeah, who knows, maybe we'll think forever.
I like to think a lot.
We both think a lot. We're very thinky people.
Yeah.
I think online people, like you're not an online person, but I'm an online person. And
Yeah, I'm not as online as you
yeah,
are.
unfortunately I'm very online. I mean, I don't log in as much, but I am present online a lot now. Kamoyada wrote How to Be Under Capitalism But Also Slaying the Day Away, which is a slight variation of the other question. Um, and then Evelyn D also wrote How to Be Under Capitalism But Also Be Sliving? Sliving?
Living, yeah, like slaying and living, right?
Sliving. Right.
Living.
Okay. Um,
You know.
we sometimes joke about like I just want to be hot. Like this is a thing we
Yeah,
like to joke
yeah.
about. But like there's
But
something
am I
true to
joking?
it. Like that's what, that's what I'm saying. Like for me, I was thinking about this because I think like we're getting straight into like this is the normiest like shit that I've ever said. Like I'm going straight full normie here, no regrets, no
Oh,
shame. I'm
geez.
just letting y'all know off top. I genuinely just think like the more that you mind your own business and take care of yourself and get yourself right, you just get hotter. Like that's just how it works.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Like like end of story. Like
Obvio.
oh yo no porque sí, like siempre estamos pensando sobre alguna cosa de ropa, de vestuario, de moda, de trends, de TikTok, de
Mm.
maquillaje.
Pero eso yo lo veo como eso de los trends se base en la ansiedad que se desarrolla con el capitalismo.
Sí.
Y cuando tú piensas en ti mismo y realmente como you reflect on yourself and like you said, like get yourself right,
Yeah.
you can start to unpair yourself from the methods of thinking that
Yeah.
serve capitalism. So like for me, a lot of it, and I feel like this is similar for a lot of femme presenting or like identifying people, is like, oh, I want to find my unique style. And it doesn't have to be like what's in trend and
Yeah.
also like based on things that aren't aesthetic necessarily. Like I care a lot about sustainability. So like I don't want to go out and buy new things anymore. Like
Yeah.
a genuinely sustainable approach is working with what you already have and minimizing the
Yeah.
need to buy new things. So, and for me, like that's hot, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like just being yourself. Because it roots to the same thing. Like being sustainable is the same as like being satisfied. Um, because we were talking about capitalism earlier and the cyclical nature of it necessitatively is based on a constant dissatisfaction, or at least it
Mm,
found a constant dissatisfaction in people because it's constant. I need to have more. I need to create more. I need to generate more. I need to produce more. I need to consume more. Whereas when you say I don't need to add or subtract more. I don't need to consume more. I don't need to produce more. I'm good.
yeah.
That's like obviously people are gonna find something hot about that because that's like
Maybe it's
completely.
ego. I don't know.
No,
But
it's not ego. I don't think so.
well, for me, it's like maybe it's my ego, but I'm like I it makes me feel like I'm doing better, not even for myself, but for like my close circle too.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing better, then think I don't know.
Nima's challenging folks in the chat because Nima says, I don't know, a lot of y'all sound like you want to have your cake and eat it too. This is an interesting chat, interesting message. So I'll ask Nima what they mean by that. But I do think
Yeah.
like there's a degree to which like um we're not sort of thinking critically about like what we really believe in um and what we're comfortable giving up. I think one of the things that has been a comfort to me and like an ironic discomfort comfort thing is saying like whenever I choose to do something that also means that I'm choosing not to do other things, which is one of the biggest struggles I think that is at the core of like a lot of anxiety, a lot of ADHD people is like if I do this, what about all these other things that I want to do that I have to do, right? I want to if I read this book, it's going to take hours, and then what about all the, the music I could have listened to and all the stuff that I was supposed to check out and all the discourse that I was supposed to tap into and the hangouts that I was supposed to do and the like you have to choose one thing. And when you choose that thing, you're also saying no to another thing, and you have to be comfortable with that. If I choose that, like some people do like riding trends, um, like some people do mean like some people do like to just like sometimes the trends are cool. I like a lot of the trends. I like to borrow from them, right? But I also know it's like if I buy something, I'm gonna have to stick with this thing. I'm gonna make this commitment to this thing. And if I want something, then that also means that something's gonna have to get like if it's something that's being produced, then that means it's gonna have to be produced, and there's gonna be negative consequences to that. And I have to be able to live with that. Um, and that's the sort of thing that I think that gets out a lot of people. I do really like the concept that like people want to have their cake and eat it too.
Hmm.
Which I think is always a funny way to word it because it's always like obviously you want to eat the cake.
I see a
Um,
lot of that happening in the chat because I'm just realizing I
yeah,
also don't
yeah,
understand the
yeah.
saying because like
But
of
I
course
think
I want to eat the cake.
like of course it's my cake, but like I think
Yeah.
everybody knows what it means, but it's the thing of like the best of exactly what Nima says. Like you want the best of both worlds, not the
Oh
bad
yeah.
parts. If you choose like to do something, you have to live with the other side of it. And I think this happens to a lot of content creators, for example. It's like I want to have this platform, but I also don't want to be held accountable. Like I want everybody to praise me when I do something good, but then when I do something bad, I want to yell at everybody for yelling at me. Which is like, yeah, obviously there's toxic elements to this. Obviously there's reasons to which you can reasonably complain. I have my
Mm,
moments. I had my moment the other, like a couple weeks ago, but there's also a certain point where you have to be like, or I could just get another job.
yeah.
So like, this is what it is, and you kind of have to live with things. And if you're not able to live with things, it's not to say like you should just be satisfied with the current order of things as they are, but it's to say like you have to be satisfied with your decision,
Yeah, yeah.
among that, to say like, this is what I choose to do. Yeah. Okay. I'll just go to the
Right on.
next. I'll just go to the next one.
No, that sounded pretty final. So,
Yeah. Um. The Thorn Rose commented more on trauma Gen Z faces, which I'm not sure what is meant by
trauma
that.
Gen Z face. Oh, like
Faces.
collectively Gen Z faces?
Oh,
Like the economy?
I read faces as a noun.
Oh,
I was like, trauma Gen Z faces. Like you want face? Like you want facial expressions? Face by
not
Jimin?
me. I'm not an actor.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone's dream.
Well, do you know, is there any underrated Gen Z trauma you want to shout out off top?
Um, I mean, the only one that comes to mind is the like 2008 financial crisis, right? That's like
Okay.
the
Okay.
big one. That's like it has affected everybody's way of under like relationship with money in a way.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something we're gonna hold forever. Um, Unfortunately, mass shootings, like
Yeah, man.
having like being the only, well, not only, but kind of first generation to have to do like mock, what's it called, like trainings in school.
Yeah.
Like that traumatized me, I feel.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a
Yeah.
lot to be said.
Um, hello to Selena Flows. You mentioned the 2008 crisis. I don't remember which. I think it was David Harvey, like a David Harvey podcast that I was listening to the other day, and he was like, we always talk about the 2008 crisis and we call it a financial crisis, and deep down, it really was a housing crisis. And that is all the other side of it as well. It's not just about like, this idea of our financial decisions, but like the idea of housing as a financial decision and being an extremely weighted one.
Right,
Like there's a lot of people for whom like housing is more insecure than it would have
right.
ever been historically in the U.S.
Even our idea, I think like millennials relate to this too, but our idea that like I have pretty much come to terms with like I'm never gonna own a home. What is,
Mm,
renting for the rest of my life look like? Um,
mm,
the all that being tied also to like the idea of retirement, like we're in these financial structures that are not going to work for us.
right.
So how how are we approaching that? And I mean, it is unfair and it feels very unfair. Like I feel like a little bit of resentment towards that, at least,
Sorry.
you know.
Yeah. I think. I mean, I don't know if I'll never own a home. Like, who knows? But like, you don't think of it immediately, um, because how can you? I mean, there's ways. There's ways it could happen. Like I'm not against making a good amount of money. Surely not. But um, I think the idea of collective ownership is going to be something that gets talked about a lot more. Now that everybody's really interested in collectives and we're having these conversations, and you know,
I'd be really interested in that. It's not something I've heard too much like
yeah,
materially or like, but I'd be interested in that.
yeah. I mean, housing is tricky because people have, you know, desires for certain amounts of privacy and whatnot. But especially in terms of like, I think we're gonna see more cooperative companies, which, when done right, can be a much better alternative. to working in a corporation, like in a you know a finance capital corporation, etc., etc. Um, and I think cooperative housing will be something that gets talked about more. Whether it's like living like with another person in a house, or like um, maybe housing structures and whatnot. I also think there's probably going to be some sort of seismic housing event coming up. I mean, when it comes to events, they're just the culmination of something that's been happening for a long time. Like it's like a thing builds and builds and then explodes one day, and that was what the 2008 crisis was. It wasn't like it just happened out of nowhere. And so we should be wary of the trends and wary of the patterns and things that are occurring, so that we can see in time that certain events might be on the horizon, and focus on doing the things that will keep us, safe, like out of crisis, and thinking about how to make, things better, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, there is a rich history of cooperative ownership in North America, real
Yeah.
danger, and in South America. Um, David Wave says, I too want to hear about vibes. So shout out to vibes. Ah, la
Shout out to
vibra.
vibes.
How to start a revolution.
I don't have the answer for that.
Well, first thing you do, yeah, I don't have any answers either. It turns out,
Get some bricks.
would have thought, but like I didn't.
Don't do that, but do that.
Yeah, maybe do that if you think about it. Because you can't help you can't build a house without bricks. You know what I mean? You know, just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a yeah. I don't know. I think revolution is something that I think we always do this thing where we're like we talk about like, oh, capitalism is bad, right? And then society needs to change, and our economic systems are inherently predatory and exploitative. Da da da.
Hmm.
And we always like there's always somebody, and there's always some part of us that's like, so what do we do?
Right.
And it depends on what you mean by we, man. Like if we like all citizens of the United States of America decided to do some shit together, you would like see crazy change, right? If a million people decided to do something, that would be crazy. But like um
I'd
if
be
you
scared of what collective United States of America could decide to do.
yeah, I mean that's the thing, but like but the whole point is like, what do you mean by we? Like if we're just talking about me and you
Yeah.
and a couple other dudes in the comment section, it's like, dude, I don't fucking know. You want to make a magazine or something? Like like um
I'm gonna make a poster.
I also think there's like some level to which these things come about by like naturally. Like nobody ever. I'm not a historian. I don't know a lot about history, but every time I hear about revolution, it usually happens because there's a huge turning point. Like some shit happens and people flip, and they like necessitatively like are like, this is all we have to, this is what we have to do. There's no
Yeah,
other
there's
way.
a threshold that is
Yeah.
exceeded.
So the whole point is like more so just like be ready, and start
Mhm.
coming up with sort of baselines for like different things we can do other than like completely buy into the system. And when if and when a revolution occurs, we have some shit going on. You know what I mean?
I think the biggest thing for me is not like I'm not a person who's thinking about starting revolutions. Like there are already ones happening. So like how can you support those also?
Yeah. I mean, like somebody like some revolutions happening. I think revolutions are basically necessitatively violent as well.
Hmm.
um, the process of decolonization is always a violent phenomenon. I have a phenomenal poster there.
Oh.
And it's, I think that, the elephant in the room or whatnot is that like the motherfuckers got like drones and nuclear bombs and like extremely militarized police forces now. Like people talk about, in the United States, like why don't people just get in the streets and rebel? And it's just like because they extremely militarize the police force. It's like one of the only things that the central government of the United States has. um, is
Mhm.
militarization of the military and the police force. Um, willing, willingness to militarize police forces in different states. So like that's a thing, right? And that's why I prefer to just be like, why don't we think about some like ways, if you can't kick, like, if you're held hostage and you can't kick the kidnappers' asses, like if they're just gonna kill you if you try to fight them, then your next thing is like, okay, so what do I do in the meantime? Okay,
Mhm.
maybe I can like plan an escape route, or maybe I can like build like a maybe I can like subtly manipulate them back. Like I could just figure something out, right? And that's what we all have to just kind of do is like start figuring some shit out. And the more that we work together with those things, it is true that they will be stronger. Bubbles Bubblelet said no, I had to wake up early tomorrow and was not able to stay. But oh no, the Bubbles Bubblelet is here. Hi Bubbles Bubblets. Um, consuming media critically. Green Mailman commented that they're no longer in the chat, but if you want to sort of talk about
Ah,
consuming media critically and what that means to you, that'd be
consuming
sick.
media critically.
What comes to mind?
For me, it's having a cap of what I can like what I consume, but also how much I'm consuming. So like I
Mm,
don't watch a lot of movies. That's been a habit since like I was a kid, but
mm,
and also shows. I think like I know my head is already very full from music
yeah,
and there's like a lot of other information that I want to put in my brain that
yeah,
I don't have the bandwidth for if I'm consuming everything that's offered. So unfortunately, like I have to miss out on some things. And for me, that's
yeah,
a critical opt out. The other part is like when you do consume something, like knowing how it's produced, knowing where it comes from, what are the interests of the people writing it, what is the interest of it being produced? Um, yeah, I mean,
yeah. I think
like writing an essay, I guess.
Yeah, I think consuming critically and like avoiding consumption of things critically usually coincides with like stuff that we're probably cool doing with anyway. Like, I joke about like everything everywhere and whatever. Like, I just don't watch a lot of Hollywood movies because I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't really like,
I mean, me neither.
yeah, like I just, I mean, and it's not a thing of like fucking fuck Hollywood, right? I understand that good movies come out and people are just doing their jobs, but I also am just like not into the whole thing. Like I'm just, even as a person who buys streaming services and stuff like that, like I'm just not super into like the thing. I'm not super into the celebrities. I'm not super into I'm not super into corporate media. I'm just kind of like, and it's not again like there are things that I do consume that are pretty shaky, like everything to a degree. Like I make YouTube videos for fuck's sake, but if like there are certain things that I'll just be like, yeah, you know what, I'll miss out on that. It's exactly what you said. And like I've never been to Chick-fil-A, like I don't really care that much about chicken sandwiches in that sense. But I also, then I can just say like, well, it doesn't even matter that much to me. I'm just not gonna go. Um, and I think that's one of the biggest things. Consuming media critically. Now, when you're actually consuming it, thinking critically just is a process of being like questioning and thinking
Yeah,
about those questions, right? And I think that's a process that everybody should undergo. But I think when it comes to everything, it's just like ask questions. Ask questions about
yeah,
what you're
even of
consuming.
media that you really enjoy. Like I'm still gonna be there asking those questions because it's not like nothing is A, nothing's made in a vacuum. B, nothing is like perfect. So I don't
And
know, it benefits you.
yeah, and this is a point that I want to make that, and we're coming sort of to the end of the stream soon. So I definitely want to have this like make this point um as like one of our closing sort of statements. Not no, we're not quite ending yet, but like a big point that I want to make. People sometimes like talk about theory and talk about things like critical consumption and things like that. and they talk about like what's the end game, this isn't actually doing anything, right? You're boycotting this thing, or you're talking about like throwing paint at paintings or whatever, or um when it comes to theory, they talk about why read this like book from like 100 years ago or whatever, these old dusty people, like this doesn't have anything to do with now, da da da. And like we could talk about well, this the revolutionary potential of this, and making critical choices is important to showing solidarity and da da da. But also, like, I really think people underrate how much it helps you when you're thinking about these things. Like, theory, like, if you read good theory, it opens your brain up and it can make you happier. It can make you more curious. It can make you cooler. It can make you more friends. Like, just understanding these things and thinking critically about them is actually self-help in a way and in a way that is deeper than a lot of self-help content can ever help you. Because like when I read when I read Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, it changed my life. It changed the way I thought. I was all of a
Same.
sudden super into education, which I had never been before, and I was super into learning and teaching and like books, like, or at least I got closer to that when I read Burnout Society by Byung-Chul Han. That was the first time I was like, actually, philosophy might be cool. I may need to do more of this, and it changed my life. Partially because it made me do this fucking channel, right? And now I have a job. Like, if you're not gonna do it, if you're not gonna think it's gonna do anything, if you don't think that it's gonna make a difference, if you don't think it's gonna, change the world, whatever, like, it'll help you at the very least. And the same thing goes for like making tough decisions about critically consuming things. Like, you may think
Mm,
it'll be better for you to just consume mindlessly, but it actually won't. You actually will feel worse. You will actually enjoy your life better and have a better sense of self if you make choices to say like, I don't want to support this. Actually, I'm not into, like, I'm not going to support JK Rowling. Like, I'm not going to support this.
yeah.
It just makes you happier because you're just like, oh yes, I have a conscience that I follow, and it makes sense. And everybody doesn't have to do exactly what you do, but if people are making decisions based off of their conscience to some degree, you will have the ability to also connect with people on that, and get a better understanding of everything. Like, be curious. Like, be curious.
Yeah.
The last comment I see on the community post is somebody named Kay who says, "Talk about shit your pets do." So I'll open
Ah,
this conversation up to you.
yeah. Oh, so I know I've told you this before, but I have two cats back in the States where I'm from. One of them is like specifically my cat. Her name's Polly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she, I don't know if it's necessarily something she does, but my grandma met her and told me that she has cara de pocos amigos, which is like literally translates to like a face that has very few friends.
Yeah.
It's basically she has resting bitch face.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, she's just like me, like
She's just like me for real.
cara de pocos amigos, just like me for
Yo no
real.
creo que te tiene como que una cara de que amable, de que suave. Yo no sé si tiene RBF.
That's because we're friends.
No, yo no sé. Yo no sé. Todas las fotos que
No,
yo veo contigo y todo eso.
no,
Y cuando yo te encontré la primera vez, yo nunca tenía esa impresión.
yo te digo que sí o sí tengo un cara de pocos amigos cuando estoy caminando por la calle. O sea, es algo like
Okay, pero eso
tienes que practicar.
that's everybody. Like you have to. Like that's like that's
Yeah,
like
but I can do a good one is the point.
oh yeah, I can do a good one too. I actually really like. I feel most comfortable with myself when I'm like in my like calm, emotionless state. Like,
Mm,
not even a state, but like my like when I perform like mellow focus, like that's when I'm most myself. Do you know what I mean? Do you ever just feel like when you perform something, you feel most at, like yourself? Like things just work out the best. Your vibe is like right, you know?
Sometimes I perform with a lot of anxiety, but sometimes there's some states.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
do notice when I perform, I have like very, very serious bitch face though, like very mean face.
I mean,
I
like,
think just all the muscles are not constant, I'm not engaging them. So they just, you know.
I mean, I don't. I mean, like literally performing like a sense of self though, like not just like literally performing, but
Uh,
like I mean performing like just outside, like when I go to the gym or when I go to school, like if I feel a
uh-huh.
little bit uncomfortable with myself or a little unsure of myself, I always default back to like, all right, I'm just gonna be serious, confident, calm. Calm Elliot is like always like my go-to, and I feel like
I feel
everybody
that.
like has a thing like that. Everybody's not always gonna be like. Maybe your vibe isn't like calm. Maybe your vibe is like you're like happy-go-lucky. They like when you don't like it seems like fake when you talk about it like that, but the fake and the real are very interconnected. And like there's I think everybody will come to realize like there's a thing that you can perform of yourself. There's a sense of self that you can perform that gets you the best results, that makes you the most confident, that makes you the most comfortable with yourself. um, Even if it's not you don't have to always just be completely true to every feeling that you've ever felt. Like you can just perform some bullshit and you'll realize that's not actually bullshit. You're just like doing the thing, you know what I mean? I don't know,
Yeah.
it's really heady shit that I'm talking about. Anyway, my cat, um
What does your cat do? What's your cat up
my
to?
cat does this. That's what my cat
I miss
does.
my cat.
She's just sleeping over there. Cats are just the best.
They're the
Extremely
best.
calm.
I like cats. Although I do have dogs too, so I'm not anti-dog.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
whoa, why is your face like that? Her face looked crazy for a second there. She was like she her mouth was open and she was like her
She
eyes were
just
like
came back to
glazed
this
over.
dimension.
She just came back to this. She just looked grumpy. Like she looked scary. Um, yeah, my cat sleeps. Um, and runs. That gets the zoomies. Runs around, bites people. Loves to sit on my mom's chest. And sleep on it.
Dude, my
Um,
cat, I would lay down like stomach down and then she would lay on my back and she would just like sit there
oh,
like
on your
in a
back.
little bread loaf and
I
then
love
I
the
couldn't get
way
up.
cats just like have places that they're just like I have decided this is a good seating place for me. Like ever since she was half half a year old or whatever, like she has been sleeping on that dog. Like that big stuffed dog's over
Oh,
here. Sorry for the squeaky noises. That big stuffed dog over here, he has been uh, a part of
is
my
this Miss
family.
Meow?
This is Miss Meow, yes. Um,
Okay.
he has been
Hi,
a
Miss
part of
Meow.
my family since I was like in shit fifth grade, fourth grade, third
Oh,
grade.
damn.
He's a very old, big dog, big stuffed dog. And she every night, so twice a day, frankly, twice a day she goes and sits on him, and she sleeps on him. So that's her best friend right there. Um, yeah, this is Miss Meow. Okay, I'll look at one more thing from the chat,
Yeah.
and then we can kind
Me
of.
acabo de dar, me acabo de dar cuenta que nos olvidamos un poquito de practicar.
Sí, sí. Bueno, cuando tenía claro que no teníamos muchos hispanohablantes
Hablantes. Ah, ya.
en el chat, yo estaba como que, ok, debemos hablar en inglés para que todo el mundo
Dejarlo
nos
ahí.
entendemos. Nos
Para la
entienden a
próxima,
nosotros.
entonces.
Sí, bueno, no, podemos hablar un poco. Sí, sí. Siempre es un buen momento para practicar tus idiomas. Yo creo que es necesario a veces olvidar un chin de tu inglés para
Sí, sí.
mejorar tu español.
Sí, yo sí
Es
siento
más
que he
eso.
oído un poquitín de mi inglés. O sea, ahora cuando hablo me falta unas palabras como más complicados
Sí.
y ahora sí siento que me está saliendo más nativo el español.
Sí, pero regresa también. Sí,
Sí, sí, sí, va y viene.
una de las cosas que nosotros es como que un secreto de las idiomas. Tenemos una idea que las idiomas son como que um,
¿Fijos?
¿hmm?
¿Fijos?
Fijos, like fixed.
Mm, ¿o
Sí,
no?
yo creo que like como que una idea de un cantidad finito um, definido de nuestra idioma, como que un como que hay porcentajes. Oh,
Mm,
mi español es a este nivel. Es,
mm,
yo soy yo entiendo 30% del idioma. Y es como que no es tan definido, es algo que siempre está cambiando día por día. Van a ser algunos días en que te va a salir todo, like, te vas a olvidar todo tu vocabulario, todo tu... No te vas a entender nada, ni te va a hablar. Y
mm.
van a ser días en que, oh, wow, yo siento como que ya estoy hablando con fluidez. Like, y es lo mismo en inglés, es lo mismo en tu primer idioma y en tus idiomas nativas también. Es que no tenemos claro eso, reconocemos, um, no estamos como que viendo ese proceso, porque es
Mm.
como que we take it for granted. Entonces
Ya, ya.
estamos, cuando pensamos en el nivel de un idioma y estamos hablando, practicando en dos idiomas, algunas veces la gente se ponen tristes porque sienten como que se están olvidando o no están, no tienen, um, no están
Avanzando.
avanzando. Yo no sé si te quiero
Ajá.
decir. Um, que no estamos avanzando en ningún idioma. Como
Mm.
que están olvidando de las dos y ni hablan, ni pueden hablar en ninguna. Solo una mezcla o algo así. Pero así es. Es como que eso es el proceso. Y
Sí, sí,
tener,
sí.
sí, sí. Y siempre van a tener tus limitaciones, pero a mí qué me importa. Like, it's fine. Like, who cares if I suck like at speaking something or if I forget something? Like, what's gonna happen?
Y
Somebody's gonna
también
kill
sí,
you?
es un poco así que a quién le importa. O sea, cuando yo recién me mudé aquí, estaba súper, súper nerviosa y
Sí. Tú siempre
pensando,
estabas nerviosa hablando en español. Tú nunca
sí,
querías
sí,
hablar en
sí.
español conmigo.
No, porque realmente sí te das como una ansiedad, siento como nerviosa que la gente me va a juzgar,
Mm,
van a saber que yo no hablo lo que yo no entiendo. Y también por ser como más, o sea, me veo como debo hablar español.
sí,
Es un poco vergüenza de no poder comunicarme, ¿no?
sí,
Pero cuando vas practicando más y más y cuando vas, yo creo que el punto es like um, being willing to fail,
sí.
basically. That's the big
Ser cómodo con
point to
fallarse.
cross. Yeah, yeah,
Sí,
yeah.
porque también uno se realiza que no importa ni que se pueda hablar definitivamente cien por
Claro, eso no
ciento
importa.
perfectamente. Te van a ver, like I was talking to Foreign the other day about this for this project he's doing, Foreign Man in a Foreign Land. And he was talking I was mentioning how like in other countries, like every culture has this, you go outside of the U.S., people could tell you're American immediately, and it's like, how did you know? Like you could like, there's so many stories of people that are like, I'm literally fluent, like people who are Korean who are like, I'm literally fluent in Korean. Um, I've lived here for years. I'm comfortable, like whatever. And literally, I'll still walk in, people still talk to me in English. Like people have these stories all the time. It literally does not matter if you speak fluently, if you do whatever, people will just tell that you're American. So you just might as well give up. There's nothing insulting about people being like, "Oh, you're American." Like, just give up. It's over. You have that.
No,
It's
pero
in your
también la
thing.
cosa para mí, también la cosa para mí que me dio como más, me hizo sentir más cómoda es que no importa a la gente alrededor que yo tengo el acento perfecto o yo tengo el
Sí.
vocabulario, importa más si puedo comunicarme, si me
Sí,
entienden, ¿no?
exactamente, exactamente.
Y en eso me quedo, o sea, eso ya, eso es todo lo que me importa.
Sí, si uno se frustra con ese proceso, te vas am, am, te vas a confundir a confusar con la parte más importante, la parte que es la razón por aprender otro idioma en el mejor, like, en el
Claro que es
primero.
poder comunicarse
Con otra persona
claro,
y tener conexiones con otras personas, con otras culturas. Eso es una cosa más bella. No es, like,
bella,
bella. Like, es, de
bella,
verdad, like, if you're not, like, you're missing out. Like, you're missing out because you're scared of failing.
yeah, yeah,
You're scared of being. It's the thing we talk about with anxiety and community and stuff like that too. It's got really foggy for some reason. Um,
fear of failure for real.
fear of failure, but literally not even just that. Like just like literally an aversion to anything that isn't perfect, which is also impossible. So anytime it just doesn't go perfectly, it's like, fuck, it's over. I have to give up. Like, the whatever vision, cualquier imagen que tú tienes de la versión perfecta de unos eventos, de algún evento, whatever. Um, si tú te comparas eso con la realidad, con la vaina
Mm,
que pasa en realidad, te vas a ver que es una versión más aburrido. No hay nada que tú puedes creer en tu mente que va a comparar o va a ser más interesante de realidad. Entonces,
claro.
tú, uh, tú tienes algunos, algunas visiones, algunas ideas de perfección y esos siempre, like, not only are they never gonna happen, but they also suck. Like,
Yeah,
like they suck. Like
de veras.
the reality is way better. So just
Yeah.
accept the reality and give up on the thing that like the vision. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm,
That's how I
yeah.
feel.
Lo he vivido.
Yeah. Well, um, I guess I'll just close there. It's about to be 11:10 over here.
Cool. Oh, yeah, I forgot it's late.
It's late. But thank you everybody for joining us and for hanging out with me and Steph. I
Yeah,
hope
thank
you
you.
support Steph's art. And shout out to Peru.
Shout out to
Peru is
Peru.
in the
Peru,
fucking house. Peru en la casa. De verdad. De verdad.
mi patria.
La conexión hispana. And yeah, you know, it's great having you. So we'll see you around. Sometimes you pop up in the chat, so don't be a stranger. Okay, don't disappear. Come back around. All right, we like seeing you here.
I do pop in the chat sometimes, but I'll be around.
All right.
Cari says es hora de mimir y estoy de acuerdo. A mimir.
A mimir, a soñar. All right. Have a good day, everybody. Have a good night.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.